Now we're going to review our sun settings. The sun, you can access the sun by typing lights, the lights command, and turning on your sun. You can also find the sun setting by clicking on the sun button right here under the render tools, and then under sun it will be on, so check or unchecked. And you can also type the command sun. That will bring up the this tab with the sun settings. By looking at the sun under the lights panel, this one, it tells you that it's a directional type. You cannot change the intensity, and the direction is something that you will be adjusting. So I'm going to turn it on right now. You can adjust the location of your sun if you go to the sun panel, and then from here either you control the north location or the north degrees. So I can click in here and then start adjusting my sun. You can barely see how some changes occur at the bottom side of this box, just because it may be set on nighttime. So let's look at daytime. I'm scrolling down to date and time settings. So yeah, it's 12 p.m. So I'm going to change this to under date and time. I'm going to change this to 7. And then I'm going to say AM. Oops, PM. So then I can come back here and then change my the degrees, and you can see how I'm changing also the orientation of the sun. Or you can type the degrees in this area right here. You can also play with the to have better control over the sun and the location of the sun. As I was saying, the sun is not an object that you can grab and then place it based on your preference. You can check this box that says manual, and then you will control the location of the sun based on the altitude and the azimuth. One image that can explain that. So if you have your sun, the altitude is going in this direction, and then the azimuth is going within my north, east, west, south orientation. So the altitude is moving in this direction, and then the azimuth is moving in this direction. So now that I check the box that says manual control, then from here I can play either with the numbers on these boxes, or I can play so I guess this is my altitude, this one right here, the degrees. So 0 degrees is it's like completely dark, well, depending on the location where you have it, on the north and south. So the azimuth, and then altitude, I'm gonna say it's 90. So 90 is like it's your typical 12 a.m. or I'm sorry, 12 p.m. And then if I need more settings under sun position, not sun position, I uncheck the manual control. That will give me additional settings. So that will give me control over the date and time. So if you want a specific time, let's say if you want it to be on 2025, then January 1st, and then on a specific January 1st, and then a specific time, then you can play with the time over here. Or you can click on now and it will find the location and the time, I'm sorry, not the location, the time that you're currently like working on and developing that model. If I keep on going down under location, then you can also find and search for the specific location where you want it. So I can say sometimes it's not too specific, so I'll list for LA it's only like in general, but it's not specific to the city. Or you can click on here and it will automatically find the location where you currently located at, and it will give you that data for the latitude and then the longitude on the day and time for the sun setting. But again, you only have access on to the date and time and location settings only when you leave the manual control unchecked. Once you check that box, all those options are locked, and now you only have access to the altitude and azimuth degrees of your sun. So you have some pros and cons when it comes to using the actual sun system. Yes, you can, if you want to be accurate based on the location, the time, and all that, then yes, use that. But if you want to have control over the location of the sun and get a nice looking shadows in your views, then I guess placing a directional light, it will be better. The sun, you cannot control the color because depending on the time, then that will vary the color of the sun. But it's not something you can manually control it. And then if you have the directional light, then you can easily control the location of your lighting source by grabbing that arrow and then just moving it around. Again, sometimes we don't want to be so precise when it comes to the location of the sun. We are more conservative in that case, and we prefer to have some shadows that can sell our idea better. In addition to the sun, we have our skylight. The only way that I can explain that is during the sunset or the sunrise. Sometimes we cannot see the actual sun because it's covered by the mountains, but there's still light going on in your environment. So that's the only way that I can compare the skylight. Is basically the sky is your source of lighting. So it's like all the light that's coming from the sun and bouncing on the clouds, and then it's projected into the objects and the environment. Most of the time when you're working on exterior renderings, you'll need to have your skylight on. Your skylight or your ambient lighting, it's something that will use a lot of the resources from your computer. So even if you have a sun, most likely you will have a skylight on, unless you're developing a sun study where you want to see the shadows, the projection of the shadows, and then the shadows are like pretty sharp and dark. Then that's the only time when I guess you may not need to use skylight. How do you access your skylight? Then you can either type lights and then on your skylight turn it on. You cannot control anything on your skylight. You cannot control your the intensity, the color, and it's not a specific type either. Now, once you turn it on, you can see how in my render view or render display, it's kind of like the ground is glowing, so shadows are not sharp compared if you have the sun on, and you can have a combination of having the sun with your sky on, so both at the same time. When you have both either the sun and your skylight on, as I was mentioning, your rendering time will take longer, and then your shadows will not be sharp compared to if you're in real life. You can see how during the day it's hard to get like a very solid shadow, but as we get late in the day, like evening time, then shadows are start getting a little bit more intense and sharp and obvious. In this third image, I'm showing you the comparison between the one on the left, that's using only the sun. The one in the middle, that's using only this the skylight. You can see how there's some gradient or like shading around the object. It's not precise on the side, so because it goes everywhere, as I was saying, like it's lighting that's coming from the cloud, so it's your environment. Compared to the sun that has like your shadows on a specific direction. But then you see now in the third one, it's a combination of both your sun and the skylight. You can still see the shadow. It's not that obvious. They're not sharp and dark shadows, and because light is coming from all directions and not only from one, as the sun is doing it on the first image by itself. There are ways that you can control your Skylight by either loading an image with a cloudy environment or with a sunny environment. But this is something we will be reviewing in a future video. But so far, right now, based on what we know, those are the limitations and the good things and bad things about the Skylight and the sun. For the sun system and the skylight, for none of them you can control the intensity. It is predefined, but we're gonna learn other ways that we can create other types of lighting and control it with other settings. And the last thing that I would like to cover on this video is your ground plane. This is specifically, I think it's more common to be used in product design. In this case, I place a place a surface to mimic the ground. So if I have a material, let's say I create this material and I want all my boxes to reflect some or have some reflection, and think like that those boxes are objects that you model for a specific product that you have designed, and then you wanna just want to create a nice looking rendering that shows some reflection, so it makes it look more realistic. So you can render it, so then it looks just fine, but then you get the edges of the actual surface that you created for your ground. And it's even worse when you have a camera view to make it look like realistic, and then you have the edges still from the surface, and maybe your environment is showing something in there, and you just want a white and infinite ground that blends with a solid color, a solid white maybe in the back. So when you have a situation like that, I'm gonna set up the view that I had before. Well, no, like I'll leave it like this for now. I'm gonna hide this surface, and right now I don't have a that problem that I will see the edges of my surface, but then I would not get any reflection from my object So that means that my rendering is gonna look less realistic, because most of the time reflections like help to make our renderings better. But there's still like hope for you. If you type ground plane, so in ground plane by default is set to be on. If you want to turn it off, then you can just come to this panel, type ground plane, or even from the lights command, and then or the sun command, and then come to the ground plane tab, and then on. So ground plane creates an infinite plane that you will see right now. Let's see if I can turn it off. It's hard to see it right now. The only way that you distinguish is that I click on it, and then you can see how the shadows or this like shading or soft shadow appears around my object, but nothing on the back for the background. Maybe if we apply a material that will help us to see the ground plane. So right now it shows shadow only, so we don't see the actual ground plane. If we say show shadow, use material, then now we can see the line of the horizon. And again, it's not an object that we can select. And then from here you can change it to be any material. So I'm going to select plastic, or the same material that I had assigned to that object, and now you can see how it blends, and I see my the reflection on my objects by clicking on the, instead of automatic, under the height above war XY plane, you select the one that has the numbers, and then from here I can start moving that up. You can see how it starts covering my object. If I go back to turn it off, my objects are there, but I'm just moving my ground plane. And this depends on the number 1 or number 2, depends on the units that you have assigned to your model. Now, if you want a solid color on your background, for that you will need to go to options, and then you will navigate to the render options under the document properties or render, and then look for backdrop, and then solid color, and it's gonna be white. Then you hit OK, and then you'll see the horizon now. And if you zoom out as much as you want, now the ground plane is infinite, and then you have a solid color for the background. And even though it is, if I remove the reflection on my material, you can see how I get shadows on this ground plane. And if I go to shaded mode, there's nothing that has been placed in my environment for the ground plane. So that's one thing that you can use if you ever need an infinite plane, or for product design, or for even for if you're modeling a chair or something like that. If you want to create a very sophisticated scene where your focal point is just your furniture, then I think placing a ground plane and then having a white background will be something that will help you. But this is also something that you can do in post-production softwares such as Photoshop. But for at least you have some tools where you can create the same type of environment with Rhino.